realm.
Two of our series, where we are discussing the fundamentals of Microsoft Dynamics 365 finance and operation. So I welcome you all, and I hope last week was a bit informative for us. And today here again. Yesterday we spoke about the core capabilities of the finance and operation module, and today we are going to look at the fundamentals of finance in Dynamics 365 F&O. So a little bit of recap of what we talked about yesterday. And right before we dive into that, I'm going to talk a little bit about myself. So my name is Siabi Komi. I am a Microsoft certified trainer, a solution architect. I work with a company called Gems Consulting, who is a good partner and is into deployment of ERP when it comes to finance and operations, CRM, Microsoft Azure, Business Central, and even customized applications that suit your business needs. Um, I own a blog, which is blog.mosiowina.com, where I try to post things that I encounter during my day-to-day implementations across our various clients and various industries. Also, um, being in the industry for over 4 years, I also try to give back to the community by answering people's questions when they have things to, they have difficulties or they have questions in Microsoft Dynamics community. I also try to make a little impact there. Okay, so that's that about me. I love Microsoft Dynamics, and when I'm not doing Microsoft Dynamics, what I do, I go to TikTok and I make some TikTok videos. All right, so let's leave TikTok aside and let's come to the business of the day. So, like I said, the last time we spoke about the capabilities of finance and operations, and what is even finance and operation? It's simply an ERP or an application that business use commerce or even human resources. So the goal is to be able to help organizations to save enough time leaving aside paperwork, having things that they can do in the system, and have a centralized database that can bring reports and analytics from what users are imputing. Dynamics 365 Finance and Operation has the capability of also integrating with other applications like Sage, Oracle, even WhatsApp, and some other messaging tools as the case may be. Now, today we are focusing on the finance part in Dynamics 365 Finance and Operation. You would agree with me that every business is out there to make profit. And for you to make profit, you should be able to manage or to be able to monitor and control your expenses and your income. So there comes in the finance. So Dynamics 365 is able to manage that in finance and operation. So there are basic things we do when we want to deploy the applications and use the finance module in it. So there we need to look at the general ledger, because before we do anything like postings, we need to set up our legal entities, create our general ledgers, our physical calendars, our currencies, our journals, and the rest of them. So in this course, we will explore the general ledger in Dynamics 365 Finance. We'll also explore the account payable and account receivables in finance as well. And also, we will look at the expense management and fixed asset management, also the budget module in Dynamics 365 F&O. So I'm going to show us what finance and operation application even look like. What does the application look like when we log on? So I'm quickly sharing do I have access to this application? Dynamics 365 Finance and Operation is a web application. That simply means you can access it via the internet or via the web. So we need a URL, and we also need login credentials like our username and password. All right. So here I have my URL and I've been able to log on. So I have this showing on my. So it simply tells you that you can access the application from wherever you are over the world. You don't have to be in your office premises before you can access the application. So here we have finance and operations, which take us back to the home page when we click on the link. And beside it, here we have a search for a page where we can search for forms on the system. Then here we have what we call legal entities. So what's the concept about legal entities? Legal entities are simply organizations that we have in a company. So take for instance, I say Coca-Cola, for instance, which is a group of organizations. Coca-Cola has business in different countries like France, USA, Germany, and the rest of them. Each of these companies have their own peculiar rules when it comes to business in those countries, when it comes to tax and the rest of them. So things like this, we tell us we need to have different legal entities for the same company in those countries. So that's bring the concept of having legal entities. So here you will see that we have a legal entity called USMF, USP, THPM, which is Contoso Robotics Thailand. So the name of the company itself is Contoso, but it has different legal entities. It could be based on the company, it could be based on the country or the location where the particular business or industry is located. Then after that, we have options. I spoke about these things the other time. Now, when we're talking about finance in D365 F and O, we have modules like the account payables, the account receivables, the general ledger, the fixed assets. It's 365 finance and operation. When I click on this general ledger, it opens the module, and the module has menus, and menus items. So I can decide to expand all, or I can decide to collapse all. All right. So let's come back to our lesson, which is the slide. So after completing the lesson, we should be able to describe finance and capability features, describe use case of legal entities, and we can also describe how Dynamics 365 Finance handle regional tax reporting requirements, cost accounting concepts, and the journaling concept. So when it comes to finance, I mentioned some of those modules earlier. We have the general ledger module, the account payable, the receivable, the cash and bank management, the financial reporting, fixed assets, asset leasing, budgeting, cost accounting, public sectors. So all of these are modules that we have on the system, and each of these modules have different things that they can help us achieve on the ERP. Legal entities. So legal entities, an organization that's a registered or legal structure. It can enter into legal contract and are required to prepare statements that report on their performance. Legal entities can also be companies that are the only kind of legal entity that you can create, and every legal entity is associated with a company ID. So a legal entity is an entity on its own that has its books, or let's say, for instance, the entity has its own chart of accounts, its own structures when it comes to finance. So that company will have its own legal entity on the ERP. So we can create legal entities by going to organization administrations on the system, and there we can decide to create our own legal entity. So I'm going to show us how we can create legal entities on the system. And we have a registration ID. So registration ID have different names based on the company, based on the country rather. We call them company registration number. We call them TIN in some places. We call them EIN. It depends on the country and the regulations and requirements for registering a business in that particular country. So let's look at how we can even create, or let's look at from which window can we see the different legal entities that are available in our organization. So here, I already showed us that when you click on this USMF, you will see the list of legal entities available for this particular organization. For some, it's only one, and for some, it can be more than one. So how do I create a legal entity? So we have a module called the organization administration module. When I click on this, and when you come to organizations, we have legal entities. So click on legal entities. There you go. So here are the list of all the legal entities that are available on this environment of mine. So to create a new one, what I will simply do is to say new. So take for instance, I want to create a legal entity called Monsieur Winner. So I click on new. So the system will ask me to provide some informations like the name of the legal entity, the company ID, the country, or the. So here I say my legal entity is Monsieur Winner. Now I need to specify the company ID, which I could call MW. Now there is a thing we need to take into consideration when we're creating our company ID. It mustn't exceed 4 characters. It could take numbers, it could take letters. So I can decide to say 001, or it mustn't exceed 4. The system won't even allow you to continue. So here I say Chirina, WM, then the country or region. So here I'm going to pick um, country, say for instance, I to filter based on the country code. And this code we have here are ISO codes. Or I can decide to filter based on the description of the company. So here I would say Togo. I can either say contains or begin with apply. Then I have this selected. Then I click on OK. So now we just created a legal entity on the system, which we call WM. And here we can then do our setup, and at the end of the day we are able to post transactions across the entire system. So one of the other things we do when we create the legal entity is we try to put things about the company, if their addresses, we impute their addresses, the language for the legal entity can be imputed. And if we have a logo for our legal entity, we can also set logos, banners for our dashboard here as well. Now, if you would notice, immediately I created my legal entity called Moshowina. Here, the system automatically assigned this to me. So I would come back to the home page, finance and operation. Let's select this Moshowina. So I wait for this to load. On the drop down, I'm going to select. So currently it's still USML, which is Contoso Entertainment System USA. So I expect the system to even change the name of the current company from Contoso to Moshowina. So I pick this. Okay, so the system is trying to reload. And here you can see that Moshowina. Okay, so it's about legal entities, how we can create them, or how we can even navigate to see the different legal entities that we have available on the system. Now, after creating legal entities, there are things that we need to check on the general ledger. So we have basic setups that we need to do, things like the calendar, the physical calendar, our ledger setup. So how do we create calendars on the system? So when I come to general ledger module, calendars, ledger calendars, and we have physical calendars as well. So click on ledger calendar. So because this legal entity was just created, we don't have a physical calendar yet here. So for the sake of demonstration, I would go back to the Contoso Entertainment USA legal entity. So I come back here on this drop down. I'm going to pick USMF once again. So I scroll down, or I can even type in USMF. Okay, so there we go. Okay, so here we have physical calendars, and then we have the different periods. So when it comes to accounting, when we create our fiscal year, we can create different periods for that year. So basically, a standard, every physical year has 12 period, and we can decide to start the period, start the fiscal year from January, and it ends in December, as you can see here. For some other organizations, the fiscal year starts in March and ends in April the following year. But here we can see that we have for 2022, we have 2022 January to December. So here, let's check 2018 fiscal year, for instance. When I select the fiscal for 2018, I can see the periods in 2018. So I come back to 2022. So we can always come back here to create our fiscal year, maybe at the beginning of the year or in December the previous year. Other thing, basic thing we do when we're setting up our ledger, general ledger module, is currencies. So under the currencies, we can see currencies exchange rate type. So when I click on currencies, we have some currencies that are available for us by default on the system, and we can create our own if we want to. Then we can also set our exchange rate type as well. So it depends on what we want to use the exchange rate for. Then having set up the exchange rate type, we can then come back to currency area. So this is where we define the actual rate based on the denomination. So I could decide to do my exchange rate from euro to BRL, Brazilian real, or from euro to naira, as the case may be. And these things can be done on a daily basis or on a monthly basis. So say for instance, here the system says as at 1st of January 2013, the exchange rate is 253.21. So say by today this exchange rate changes. So what I will do is just to say as from today, the exchange rate has increased to 400 BRL euro. Then other thing that we need to take into consideration when we're setting up our general ledger is chart of account. So the chart of account is where we define how the accounts that will be used during our different postings on the system. Then we can also use the main account form to create new GL accounts on the system. So say for instance, as a financial controller, there has been a meeting and we decide to introduce a new code into our chart of account. So we can always come here and create a new chart of account. So we can define the name of the account, the ledger type, if it's an asset, if it's a liability, we can do those here. And we can also decide to assign this main account to different legal entities on the system. Also, we have what we call financial dimensions in the system, and we have account structures. So financial dimensions are simply segments that we can use to classify our postings. So ideally, when you're making a posting into Dynamics 365 or any financial software, you need to have a GL account where you can post your debit and a corresponding GL account or a subledger where you can post your credit and your debit, right? So we can tell the system that even though I'm posting into this GL, I want to further classify everything that is going to this account using a dimension. So take for instance, we have an account in a sales organization that we use to do all our posting for sales when it comes to laptops, for instance. Now we have salespersons or marketers that bring clients to us for us to be able to sell these laptops. And we have three marketers or three salespersons. So once you even know out of the whole sales amount that we have, how much is coming from marketer one, how much is coming from marketer two. So we can use things like dimension to have this kind of report on the system. Then lastly, I will talk about the account structure. So account structure helps us to make sure that we enforce these postings when we are bringing main account together with this financial dimension that I just spoke about. So um, let's see the different dimensions that we have. So when I come back to general ledger dimensions, so here we have dimensions like agreement, bank account, dimensions like department, we have dimensions like item group, job skills, product group. So job skills, for instance, we might want to see, okay, for a job skills called Dynamics 365 Architect, These job skills is able to bring a profit of $10,000 for the fiscal year of 2022. So that's the usefulness of the financial dimension. Now, having done some of this setup, the other thing we want to look at is the ledger setups. Before that, let's go to journal setups, journal names. So, what are journal names? Journal names are simply uh, entries or books that we use to record our transactions. So, when I'm posting a sales transaction, for instance, I'm posting against two different ledgers. So I need to record this transaction. So that is where the journal comes in. So we need to have our journal names created on the system before we can even decide to create or post transaction to the ERP. So here we have journal names based on transaction type. So I have things like accounts payable invoice. I have things like customer payments, asset entries, general journals, and of them. So we create our journal names here and we can use them across the system. Having done this, we can come to the ledger setup proper. So when I click on ledger, here we can see how we can map our chart of accounts. So here we have chart of account that needs to be linked, account structures, the accounting currency, the reporting currency, then the current. So here by specifying default, the system is able to pick every exchange rate that has been defined or configured in the default currency exchange rate type for any transactions at all. All right. So having done this, we just had a little overview of the general ledger module, how we can configure the basic things, what will create a new legal entities on the system and make our system ready to be able to accommodate transactions across the application. So I would go back to the slide. Okay. So we also have setups relating to sales on the system. So of course, as a business that is making sales in a country, there are some payments that are made to the authorities, and we call this payment tax. So we wouldn't want to do this tax payment or those tax calculations manually ourselves. We should be able to allow the system to handle these things. So take for instance, I'm making a sales of 3 laptops. So the system should be able to calculate tax on these sales and post them into an account. And at the end of the month, at the end of the quarter, terms like sales tax group, item sales tax group, sales tax reporting code. So these things, once we set them up on the system, we are telling the system to help us calculate this tax element when we are doing transactions on the system. So we have a module dedicated to that where we can go to configure our sisters group, our sisters code, and the rest of them. So the sisters group is a group of sisters code that are attached to customers and us. And the sisters group include all sisters code that apply when you trade goods or services with customers and vendors. So like I said earlier, we have codes, and in this line, how the calculation should be done, if the vendor is a vendor, if the vendor is an international vendor, or even the customer is either local customer or international. So you agree with me that when you're dealing with a local vendor or customer, the tax element should be slightly different when the customer or the vendor is outside of your company or outside of your country or outside of your jurisdiction. Then we have item sisters group. So we can put our taxes on the items. So when I'm selling oil, for instance, I have a particular percentage of tax. So we can define tax group on items or services that we are rendering into the ERP. Then we have sales tax reporting code, and this refers to a field number on the sales tax report. And we can use this on country specific or region layout for different payments. So a little visit back to the system. So here we're back to the finance and operation apps again. When I come to the left hand side here, modules, we have the tax module. So here we have some setups. We have our sisters code, sisters group, our item sister group, sister authorities. So under the sisters authorities, for instance, we can define things like the authority, like the New York Tax Authority, we have the California Tax Authority. On the sisters group, so here we have different sisters group that have been created. So this says 5PCT. So this is a stars group that you'll be have to be specifying later on our customers or our vendors. Now back to the sales stars code. So the sales stars code is where we want to define our calculation or the percentage. So here, for instance, we have a California State Retail Pro. Here we can see the percentage or the amount. This is for Georgia State. You can see that here the percentage or the amount is 4%. So here we can view the value and we can edit the value if we want to. So if say for instance, as of today, the Georgia state is no more collecting 4%, it has been increased to 4.5. So here we can increase it to 4.5 with the same sales tax code. Okay, so that's with the tax model we can do some configurations about the sales tax code. Okay, so I will come back to this. So we spoke about journal concepts, and I said um, the journal names are things that allows us to process our transactions. So if you don't have a journal name, you can't post your transaction because you need to have a book or a record that keeps your transaction posting. So we set up journal names, and journal names are virtually available across the different modules on the system. And we have some that are available when you come to general ledger, account payable, cash and bank management, and the rest of them. So let's we'll come back. Let's proceed a little bit with the slide, and then we'll come back to. Okay, so I'm going to show us the different journals that we have when it comes to these different modules on the system. So we'll go back to Dynamics 365 Finance and Operation. Voila. So here I have the general ledger. Then I come back to journal setup, journal names. So I'll pick a general journal for instance. So this I want to be able to post my daily journal. So say for instance I want to move payment from one GL account to another. I can use the general journal. So let's see where we can apply things like this on the ERP. So still under the general ledger module, I come to journal entries, general journals. Then under the name, the system is going to suggest the different journal names that are available for general ledger model. So in this case, I'm picking general journal. Then once this is picked, I'm sure that okay, I have a book or I have a page where my transactions will be recorded. So having done this, the next thing I would like to do is to click on the lines. Then on the lines, the line opens where I can pick the main account, the amount of the transactions, the description if there are descriptions. Then I can also pick the offset account. So take for instance, here on this drop down, I have a main account. So say for instance, I want to be debiting my petty cash. So I spoke about financial dimensions earlier. So here, the main account might not be sufficient, even though it's compulsory. I might want to pick the business unit to say that okay, this petty cash that I'm hitting is linked to the business unit IT consulting practice. And what is the department responsible for this amount of money is the IT department. So here we can see that the financial dimension is coming into play. Then here I can put the description, your winner. Then I can put the amount. So I'm debiting this petty cash with 50, 50 what? So we will see if this is 50 euro, $50, 50 naira, or even 50 francs CFA. Then I need to specify an offset account. The accounting principle says for every debit there must be a corresponding credit. So here I need to specify the offset account. So I can come here and maybe I want to credit inventory profit account. Then I can click on save. Then I can do other things I want to do. Then I can post. So having done this, I was able to post a transaction against the journal name, which is general ledger journal name. Vendor payment journal. When I come to account receivable, for instance, I want to make payments related to customers, I would have a customer journal names for that. Also, for the fixed asset module, when we're trying to do things like fixed asset acquisitions, fixed asset depreciations, we have different journal names for each of these transactions. So I've opened the fixed asset journal entries. So here, let me show you the journal names that we have. So on this drop down, if you notice, I have limited journal names here. I'm not able to see journal names that were appearing where we were under the general ledger model. So I have things like the fixed asset depreciation entries and the rest of them. Okay. So having said that, we've been able to see the journaling concept on Dynamics 365, how that play out. And we also spoke about sales tax. So I have the first set of questions for us. Let's look at that. So here we have knowledge check. We have 3 questions that are available for us. The first question says, I think this is talking of legal entities. So Contoso USA recently acquired a new manufacturing company. Yes, that's expansion. What should you create, or what should they create first in Microsoft Dynamics 365 to accommodate this acquisition? So Contoso USA. So the company Contoso is residing in USA, and they are able to purchase a new manufacturing company that is residing in Canada. These are 2 different countries, 2 different regions. So what should they create? Do they have to create a new operating unit, a new warehouse, or a new legal entity? All right. So we spoke about legal entity. Let's talk about warehouse and operating unit. So what are warehouses? Warehouses are simply locations or places where we keep our finished goods or our raw materials. So as a manufacturing company, we are into manufacturing the production of laptops. So we can have where we keep our motherboards. We can have where we keep our laptop covers, batteries. So these are warehouses. Operating units are um, very close to department. So we have units that work on different things. So those are operating. Then the legal entity encompasses of warehouse, site, and even department and operating unit. So here, what will be our answer? Is it one? Is it two? Or is it three? So I'll wait for your answers. Okay. So I think you pick the same as me, which is number three. So the answer is number three. Now, which of the following journal is related to accounts receivable? So we have bill of exchange, remittance journal, elimination. So let's go to account receivables. So when I come to account receivables, let's see the journal names that we have. So let's click on vendor payment journal. Okay, so here I'm going to see the vendor payment journal. So just a heads up. So we have a bill of exchange. So we use bill of exchange when we want to probably return payment for our customers. So um, just to save time, the answer for number two is going to be bill of exchange. Back to our slide. Bill of exchange. Yeah. So the last one says number 3, which is sales tax is applied to both the product that Contoso manufactures and the materials of the company buys from other vendors. Which kind of tax group should be created for each transaction? So I spoke earlier then I said that our sales tax group are applied to vendors or customers. Our item sales tax group are applied to items, services, or materials that or products that we are purchasing from our vendors or we are selling to customers. So here the question says, are we going to apply only sales group? Are we going to apply sales group and item sales group? Or are we going to apply only the sales group? So we have minutes to think about the question. Okay, so the correct answer is number 2, which is a sales group and an item sales group. The reason is every transaction for which we want sales to be calculated and posted must have a sales group and also an item sales group. Okay, so let's move to the next thing. Okay, so in this model, we're able to describe legal entities, tax reporting. We didn't talk about cost accounting, which I skipped. Cost accounting is more bringing data from different modules to have a report. So I'm not talking about that. The ledger in finance. So we've described chart of accounts already. We talked about main account, balance sheet, and income statement. So when we're creating our main account, we can either decide to tell the system if the account we are creating is a balance sheet account or if they are P&L account. Then we spoke about the financial dimension also. So chart of accounts are indexes of all the financial accounts in the general ledger of the company. So the chart of account contains all the ledgers or all the GL account that we need for us to carry out our transactions. So I've spoke about the ledger setup, the financial dimensions. The journal setup is where we pick our chart of accounts. We pick our reporting currencies, our transaction currencies. We also spoke about the transaction types. So financial dimension page have the segment in your accounting structure and are critical for reporting purposes. So like I said earlier, it's basically used for reporting. So I can see which department, which employee, or which group of item, which jobs type are bringing income into the organization. Then we have financial dimension set. So we use this to combine our financial dimensions when we are pulling our reports. So the main account is always included and can be combined with other financial dimensions. The main account can also be the only financial dimension included in the financial dimension set. Yeah. So when I was creating my general ledger entry earlier, I picked a bank account and I was able to specify financial dimensions like the business unit, and I also specify the department. But I can decide to specify only the main account on the transaction. Okay, so think we can end it here, and if you have questions, we can address them. All right, so we have a question that said, do I need to have an accounting fundamental knowledge before learning Dynamics 365 ERP? Yeah, so I will partially say yes. You need to have you don't need to be an accountant for sure before you can learn ERP. You just need the basic knowledge of accounting, which is you knowing that when you post a debit, you need to post a credit. I think with that, you are good to go. And as time goes on, you are able to build upon that knowledge as you're learning the ERP and also coming across some terminology in the ERP system. So you'll be able to follow alongside. So we have things like doing our purchase orders. We have some accounting processes that come into play when you are doing your product receipts, when you are doing your invoices, or even when you are doing your payments. So these are things that you can learn gradually as long as you are committed and you want to really have a career in Dynamics 365 finance and operation. Yeah, so you can also learn Dynamics ERP with zero knowledge of accounting because you want to deploy. So it's not only about finance. You can be an expert in Dynamics 365 and focus on human resource. So there, you don't even need anything about accounting because your own is you're more focused on how to employ employees, how to do recruitment processes, how to create courses, and the rest of them. But like I said, if it's something you pick interest in, as you progress, you also know the accounting part in Dynamics 365. For me, when I started, I know nothing about accounting, nothing. But as time goes on, I'm able to learn some concepts and I'm able to graduate or move to the next step in accounting. Then, how can one assess the ERP to learn? This is not available for everybody. When you want to deploy the application and you pay for licenses, it is available for partners and clients. Now, Microsoft made something available that we call the VHD. So the VHD contains a demo environment, like I just showed you, and you can download that VHD on your system. You can power it on anytime you want to power it on. See demo data, play around with it, and you can start your learning process there. As a matter of fact, we have a link that Microsoft provided, which is the Microsoft Learn, and the series we are looking at currently are the series that will allow you to sit for the exam we call MB-920. So when you go to your search on the internet and you type MB-920, you would see the learning part. So I will just show you quickly here. And another thing is you can also have access to the ERP without downloading anything in your system for like an hour. Just a second. I think I have just 4 minutes to go. Let me show you quickly. Okay, so let's share again. All right, so here I come to Google. I'm just going to type MB920. So I click on MB920 exam, right? So here I'm just going to scroll down. I'm not sitting for the exam now. I will click on the learning part. So when I click on this start, and I have get introduced to the finance and operation app. So I click on this. Introduction. Okay, continue. So I think the third or the fourth slide, you would see that you can have access to the ERP directly on the web here. Good. So here unit 4, you can see it's showing me a lab. So I can click on launch. When you launch the lab, what you need is just to um, log in with this username and this password. And I think this is available for you for like an hour that you can practice. And when it goes off, you can always refresh, log in again, and try to access it. So here I click on Start Lab, a new page is open. So with this method, you don't even need to download the VH that I was talking about earlier. The VH is available for you. You can power it anytime you want to and power it off. But with this one, you have a lab that is available inside the Microsoft Learn where you can check some of these functionality. Okay, good. So it's up now. What I will do here, I have two logins. One is to log on to the Windows itself. I click on this one. It automatically fills up this. I click on next. Voila. So I have this. So what I need to do is just to click on the browser. Then I'll see the URL that will have minutes to go. Okay, so I'll click on the URL here. Then the URL is this guy. So I put my cursor on accept. In the URL address bar here, I'm going to click on this. Then I put this password. So that's it. You have access to the environment. All right, thank you. Um, that's thank you.